Justin, we'd like to follow up with you also in decision-making processes that you study. In particular, some of your recent research has been exploring the implications of the rising number of options people have for health insurance, including, for example, the introduction of the high-deductible health plan options. Your research has highlighted that while having choice may sound good, it sometimes has some surprising and unintended consequences. Can you tell us about this?
So how many people here have a choice of different levels of health insurance from their employer? So what I'm thinking here is like a low deductible or a high deductible option. So most of us, all the faculty in the room do, even if they sort of don't always pay attention that they have that choice. So this is an increasingly common thing that in many health insurance markets, you'll see that there will be low deductible options, high deductible options. More coverage and less coverage. And you can sort of think there are a number of potential reasons that might happen. So for instance, as healthcare has gotten a lot more costly, there are people who are very sensitive to the cost of their health insurance, both on the employer side, if you're responsible for paying for employee benefits, this is a big deal for all employers, or as an individual, this is also a big deal. And the interesting thing in this space is that most of us have this feeling that, well, giving people options between these different levels is probably better than just dictating, for instance, that everybody has to have the same level of coverage. And there's a lot of intuition to that, right? It's sort of, we think, well, some people are likely to need more health care, they probably need more coverage. And maybe some people are more risk averse, and maybe they need more coverage. But it turns out there's a problem with that in health insurance, the idea of choice. And it's this thing that we spend all sorts of time bothering our undergraduates and our master's students about. And in insurance, we've got these problems of what we call, in our geeky language, adverse selection. Now, when you think about it in health insurance, it's actually pretty simple to talk about what that is. The people who are going to want those plans with low deductibles and more coverage tend to be the people who are going to need more health care, right? So they know they're going to have a baby that year, or they've got some chronic health condition. And the people who are a little bit more likely to take the high deductible plans tend to be the younger folks, the folks who know that they're probably not going to need as much health care. So the problem that starts to create is that what you get is that the folks who remain in a low deductible option when you have a choice tend to cluster a bunch of less healthy people. And the folks who end up in the high deductible plan tend to be a cluster of the more healthy people. And that drives this big difference between the underlying costs of those two plans. Now, in many markets, there's ways of trying to sort of make that work out and sort of average out. But the problem my co-authors and I got interested in thinking about is what's going on in all of our employee settings, right? So we've got a bunch of employees, and we all traditionally, let's say 30 years ago, were in one big pool. The healthy ones of us, the less healthy ones, the ones who are about to have a baby and the others, we all were in the same health insurance pool. And we sort of shared these costs. It was one big pool. But now as you start giving us options, we're sorting ourselves, right? The younger employees are in one pool, and the older employees, or the ones who are about to have a baby, are in another pool. And so we got interested in, okay, well, what's going on when you actually look at this? And so we got at this in kind of two ways. So one is we got data from a big employer, a Fortune 500 company, who had done something interesting. They had launched a new platform for their employee benefits where the employees could select a whole wide range of possible health insurance options by basically pulling all these levers. What do you want your deductible to be? What do you want your maximum out of pocket to be? So on. And then we also looked at this across a whole bunch of employers using an employee benefits survey, where you can look at employers who offer low and high deductible plans. And the thing we were looking for is we were interested, if I'm an employee, which plan should I choose? Okay. Well, your instinct would probably be, if you're unhealthy, you choose the low deductible plan. And if you're healthy, you choose the high deductible plan. And your instinct would be wrong at most companies, including, this is the fun tip for all the faculty in the room, at our employer. So the reason you're wrong is that at a wide range of companies, including this Fortune 500 company we studied, but also we're looking at about a third to about half the big companies in this big employer survey, the deal for taking the high deductible plan is just really too good. Even if you know you're going to need a lot of health care, it turns out you're going to spend less money with the high deductible plan. It seems very paradoxical, and it kind of is, But the basic reason is that the people who remain in the low deductible plan are starting to get unhealthy people prices. And so if you want to pool back and get like an average person price, you need to join the healthy people who have bailed to the high deductible plan. And so in some ways, it looks like we're offering a choice, but we're not offering a meaningful choice, or we shouldn't be. Now here's the last kicker. Our econ models of rational choice would say what happens in this situation is I offer these two plans, the healthy people go to high deductible, and all the unhealthy people have to follow them because the cost of the low deductible plan is just now too high. But the problem is that's the rational choice model where we understand what we're buying. How many people feel really confident in their choice of their health insurance plan? Yeah, that gets less hands. So it turns out most people find health insurance incredibly confusing. And because of that confusion, you actually get this interesting dynamic where a lot of people end up still choosing those low deductible plans, even though there's no way they can benefit from them. And that's what we found, for instance, at this Fortune 500 company. Over half the employees were paying for a low deductible plan at a company where that guaranteed they were going to spend a good $500 more each year on their healthcare costs total. Now, they didn't know they were doing that. And in some ways, more interestingly, the employee benefits people at the company didn't know they were doing that. And the CFO didn't know they were doing that until we studied it. They weren't super happy in that meeting when we revealed this. And it turned out to be one of these interesting sort of problematic tensions, because once they offered this choice and you started having this problem, the people who were making these confused choices are your most vulnerable employees too, right? So it's the people who know they need a lot of healthcare, it's your older employees, and it also tends to be your lower income employees who are looking for that better insurance, who are ending up paying more than the others. So the kind of moral of this is, I think, as we study these things, a lot of these things that sound intuitive at first and sound sort of obviously sensible are more nuanced and more complicated when you think about how systems interact and how people make their decisions. And so, at a very high level, the sort of things that we teach our students is about trying to really figure out how the whole system's going to work and whether there are unintended consequences of these things.